Welcome back then folks to Special Projects pack number 17 once again. Of course, this is the 6th build this week, the second one for today, and this is a car which any of you who follow the channel regularly will know was coming. Of course, I featured the livery. I'd already basically built this car from day one pretty much when the Civic arrived in the game. It is of course a replica of a slightly different version of the Civic, which we used to have, which was the Motul racing version. Sometimes overshadowed by some of the other touring cars, but a very, very cool little car with really cool handling as well. Now this one, of course, is not an actual race car, so don't expect it to handle exactly like that. In terms of the tyres in particular, I also decided to put it on sports tyres. Usually I'd just go for racing, but I thought, you know what, I'll give it a bit more of a competitive point level because the racing tyres might make it a bit too high in comparison to its straight line power, and one of the main things that I wanted to do was, if at all possible, try to match the GT6 numbers for the car while keeping it naturally aspirated. And of course it goes without saying with the standard engine as well. So thankfully we have managed to do that because 226 is pretty much spot on to what that car used to have. Unfortunately, if I recall, the weight might be a bit different. I can't remember if it is or not now because I'm now second guessing myself, but I don't recall. Either way though, it's a very fun little car, as we'll see in a second. And as far as the racing tyre question, well, you'll have to decide that for yourself. As far as, first of all, the sports section, in fact, just before we do that, we'll jump into the ultimate stuff. We've got the high lift cams S, which of course cancels out the lower one, the titanium rods and pistons. If we jump back to the sports stuff, we've got stage 1 weights. The comfort mediums obviously are already on there. So we've got the sports hards. Like I said, you could go for racing if you just want to go like full authentic racing experience, but with 225 horsepower, it might struggle on some events. As far as the club sports stuff, like I said, of course, the higher cams cancels out that one, so you don't need to worry about that. The high compression pistons, the bored out engine, of course, we've got the power restrictor and the ballast as well. For the semi-racing stuff, we've got the ECU, the racing crank, the limited slip diff. I've gone for the manual box, a bit more of that raw feel. As far as the racing stuff, we've got the polished ports, balance tuning, stroked out engine, the filter, silencer, of course the manifold. For the brakes, I've gone for the drilled discs with the racing pads, of course race suspension, the clutch and flywheel as you'd assume. The racing hards incidentally jump you up, not too crazy, it's still well under 600 points, but like I said, you might struggle on some tracks given the lack of straight line power. As far as the extreme stuff, I've gone for the steering angle adapter, of course helps with the turn-in on the front-wheel drive chassis, and for the ultimate stuff, well, we already showed you. So, given everything we've done, sub 900 kilos, 225 horsepower, of course the car already being good straight out of the box, I don't think the point level's too crazy. Especially on sports tyres, 516 isn't really too high, given how OP a Japanese car could easily come off as. So we've got the sports tyres fitted, of course, as far as the suspension, 95mm, front and rear, 5 on anti-roll, 25 and 35 for the dampers, 2.75 for the springs. Pretty big difference between the camber on the front and the back. We've got 3 on the front and then 1 on the rear. And as far as toe, nothing on the back. And a hefty amount of toe in on the front, 0.20 in. And again, that's to help with the turn in on corners. As far as the diff, 555 on the front end. With a front wheel drive car, everyone has their own preference. So if you don't like that, of course you could change it. For me, that works pretty well even on the car. So give it a try and see what you think. As far as the auto setting on the gearbox, 200 kilometers an hour, so really nothing that crazy. That's what, 120, 130-ish miles an hour, which for most tracks is more than good enough. You don't really want to be bogging down the gears when you've already got a bit of a power disadvantage compared to some other cars on the grid. 44 kilos of ballast. Now the fact that I've added the ballast makes me think that this probably was the correct weight in GT6, because otherwise I wouldn't have added that, so I guess that was right, which is a nice turn of chance. As far as the downforce, I've got it set as high as it can go on this one, both front and back. Again, it's a grip build, you may as well embrace that. But I guess you could lower it if you do want a bit more straight line, top end acceleration, but I doubt it's going to make a huge amount of difference anyway, even if you do. And there's all of the other parts which we've fitted. So that's it for the spec, that's it for the tuning. Now, of course, we'll jump out to the track and show you what it's like in practice. Now, this one does, as you would assume, and as I think I mentioned before, have a bit of understeer. If you really throw it into a corner and dive in and try and power your way all the way through, well, you can definitely feel the fact that it is a car which had nowhere near 225 to begin with, which now does. And like I said, no matter what you do to it, it still is not an actual race car. If, though, you do just go totally on the opposite end of the crazy scale and fit the racing tyres, well, I haven't even tested tested that, but I would imagine it would be a heck of a lot of fun if you go for even racing hards would probably feel fantastic on this car, or for that matter sports softs would probably feel pretty damn good as well and give you a slight point advantage over the racing ones. So depending on what you plan to use it for, maybe just for fun, maybe career mode, maybe you'll adjust it up or down for certain events, I hope whatever you choose you have a lot of fun with it. Of course, support the livery creator. Tons of people have done this livery though, so you know, it's pick of the pack in terms of what you want. Stick around of course for the rest of the builds this week and for the ones which we've already done in this week of pack number 17. But that's it for the build. I'll see you next time, and thanks for watching.